Well, we are very excited about our next course, and we have Mrs. Bullock here to talk about economics.
Hey.
And we are going to just have a little bit more of an interview style here. Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and post them, and we will try and get to as many of those as we can today. But to start out, can you explain what year this economics course is recommended for and how it's kind of set up and when parents should have their kids take it?
Sure. Well, I try really hard to bring in critical thinking on the highest level. So I would definitely say that this would be a 12th grade level course. I would prefer people to take it in the spring and do government in the fall, so that the government would go along with any elections that are taking place, but that's your choice. But I would
it makes
put it
sense.
that way.
It makes a lot of sense, especially if you take this in 2020.
Yes,
so
yes.
There's a lot to go on there.
Mm-hmm.
And so is this a 180-day single semester?
No, it is a 90-day course. It's one semester. It kind of goes hand in hand with government, American government.
Perfect. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, could you give us an overview of the different topics that are covered in this economics course?
Absolutely. Economics is really the science of how and why people make choices. And that's really what we'll be studying, the science of choices. There are different units, there's 5 different units. In Unit 1, we'll be talking about economic models and supply and demand. We'll also get into the difference between macroeconomics and microeconomics. Microeconomics is the economics of individuals, whereas macroeconomics is really the government and things like that. And you'll see, as I talk about these things, how both are covered. Unit 2 is about the economic problems that individuals face and nations face, and also economic systems, the capitalism, socialism, mercantilism. Mercantilism actually is the precursor of socialism. Most people don't realize that. And then Unit 3 is the different forms of business, like sole proprietorships, partnerships, corporations, and what those entail, what the rules of the government and that are put onto those different types of businesses. And also the economic competition that takes place, and the stock market. Now, the stock market, that is an exciting time because we start what's called the stock market project. And each of the students will be given $100,000
Wow.
of...
What about employees?
But no. But you get $100,000 of money that has my face on it. It's so cute. Not my face, but the little doodle that they made. But they have to buy and sell stock. And hey, Amanda, how are you? It's usually for 12th grade. So in the stock market project, the students will buy and sell stock for about 6 to 8 weeks. And during that time, they will get the opportunity to see how it works. And it's all obviously make-believe, but that way they know how to do it.
So are they actually like jumping on line and
Oh,
watching
yes.
the stocks go up and down?
Yes, they have to buy 5 stocks, different companies, stocks from 5 different companies. Mm-hmm. And then at that point in time, at the end of the project, they have to have 5 totally different companies.
Okay.
So they're
So the requirement is they have to go back and forth.
Oh yes,
wow.
Yes. They don't get to just buy 5 and then sit on it for the whole time. They have to try to and learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. And the grade is not based on how much money they make, but whether they do what they're supposed to and they do it correctly. So, and then Unit 4 is all about the financial market, banking and things. And then Unit 5 is where we really get into macroeconomics, where we're talking about inflation, the business cycle, and all of the foreign policy and things like that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, that is in 90 days.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So you're definitely going to want to be in 12th grade for that course.
Oh, yes.
Wow,
Yes, very
that's
much
great.
so. We fly. But I try to bring it down to the level, like, where it applies to their lives.
Right.
Very much so.
Well, speaking of applying it to their lives, could you talk a little bit about a biblical worldview and how that interacts with all of these different economic issues?
Absolutely. Remember that economics is the science of how and why people make choices. So each of us make choices that need to be evaluated by the scriptures. We need to determine whether we have made the right choice or the wrong choice, the just choice or the unjust choice. And using the Bible to determine those choices really is important. We need to remember that they need to glorify God and that we need to respect those that are made in God's image. So, hi Melinda.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what something my wife and I talk a lot about in our household when we're trying to make a financial decision. We'll say,
Yes.
we've got to figure out what our values are, and then the finances fall in line with what our values are. So,
Right.
That's fantastic. It would be really helpful if I knew that in 12th grade.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Very good. Could you talk a little bit about this course, and does it help these 12th graders who are maybe going on to college, maybe going to go ahead and start their vocation, if this economics course will help them in their future business?
Yes, those are some of the things that we talk about in the course. We talk a lot about supply and demand, and we talk about why prices are the way they are. But those things can be moved over into the supply and demand of jobs. You don't choose a price just out of the air. It's a long process of forming a chart with the supply curve and the demand curve and coming up with the market equilibrium price. But it's the same thing when you're trying to determine what occupation you should go into. I know that the tech industry needs a lot of people right now.
Lots of opportunities.
Yes, there are lots of opportunities. And then there are other opportunities that aren't very productive.
Right.
And
right.
They're
There can
saturated.
only
That's the word I was
be
looking
so
for.
many
Yes.
philosophy professors.
Yes, exactly. So if you look at the supply and demand of different jobs, it can help you determine which one is the best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even if you start a job and you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out how many candy bars I want to
Yes.
produce.
Exactly.
You're going to use these economic principles.
Oh, very
throughout
much
that.
so. With the supply and the demand, with making the market equilibrium price.
Very good.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I know you talked about a lot of different economic issues. Does this course at all touch on history, whether historical economists or historical events that happened in the past that had economic issues related to them?
Yes. We talk about different economists that made breakthroughs throughout history. But understand, a lot of these principles have been around. They just were identified by different economists.
Right.
Now, a perfect example would be tulip mania in the 16th century with Holland. They had these tulips that were very, very, very expensive. $100,000 in today's market
Wow.
for one tulip bulb. And people were buying these as investments, and the speculative bubble burst. That's very similar to what was happening in the 1920s when the bubble burst in 1929. So really in history, we can learn a lot from what happened years ago and apply it to today.
Right, fantastic. Very good. Well, this sounds like it would be a very helpful course for any 12th grader who's getting ready to either go into college or to start their career. This would be something that would really put them ahead.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Oh, you're
for
welcome.
taking the time to share this with us. And if you want your student to get
Oh, yes.
100,000 of these, make sure you enroll in the economics course. And again, it will be available in the distance learning online platform July 1st, and the DVDs will ship by August 1st. Thank you so
You're welcome.
much
You're
for
welcome.
being with us this afternoon.
There.
Well, we want to again thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. And if you want to learn more about these courses or any of the other BJU Press distance learning courses, you can see sample videos on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search BJU Press Homeschool. And if you'd like to see the textbooks that go along with these, really recommend that you find your way to a meeting nearby. We have curriculum display meetings, and we're at conventions all across the nation. And that would be a perfect opportunity if you want to look more closely at these materials to be able to do that. But then there will also be experienced homeschool moms there called Homeworks Consultants who have been teaching their kids for years and would like to be able to answer your questions. They'll be there to take your questions. Well, thank you so much, and we hope that you have a great afternoon.